From bitter rivals to mutual respect. Conor McGregor just broke his silence on Jose Aldo's emotional retirement, and you won't believe what he said. In one of the most unexpected yet meaningful gestures of sportsmanship, Conor McGregor chose to honor Jose Aldo's legacy with quiet dignity after UFC 315. On his Instagram story, McGregor shared a video clip showcasing Aldo's performance in his final fight, captioned simply with the words, "Jose Aldo last night." Though just 4 words, the post spoke volumes. The eye emoji conveyed McGregor's admiration and awe, acknowledging that even in defeat, Aldo remained a warrior worth watching. This post stood in stark contrast to the infamous verbal war between the two leading up to their fight in 2015, when McGregor infamously whispered, "Você vai morrer, you're going to die," to Aldo's face. The 13-second knockout that followed became one of the most iconic moments in UFC history. But with time, the venom faded, and mutual respect took its place. In addition to the Instagram story, McGregor also wrote on X, formerly Twitter, "Jose Aldo is a real legend," further solidifying that any lingering hostility was long gone. His word highlighted a deep appreciation for Aldo's skill, heart, and impact on the sport. Not just as a rival, but as a fellow champion who helped shape an era in MMA. McGregor has praised Aldo in the past, even after their rivalry ended. When Aldo was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2023, McGregor simply said, "earned." A single word of validation from a man known more for trash talk than tribute. He's also mentioned interest in training with Aldo, should the Brazilian ever travel to Ireland. McGregor's reaction to Aldo's retirement wasn't flashy or dramatic. Instead, it was humble and heartfelt, showing that even in a brutal sport like MMA, legacy and mutual respect often endure long after the final bell. If you made it this far, hit that like button if you respect Jose Aldo's legendary career, and drop a comment with your favorite Aldo fight moment. Jose Aldo's retirement at UFC 315 wasn't just prompted by a loss in the octagon. It was a culmination of an internal battle that had been building for years. In his post-fight speech following the unanimous decision loss to Ayman Zahabi, Aldo revealed the toll the sport had taken on both his body and his spirit. What may have looked like just another competitive fight from the outside was, in truth, the final chapter of a long, exhausting journey. He admitted candidly, "I don't think I have it in me anymore." While most fighters struggle with knowing when to walk away, Aldo faced a breaking point during his final fight week. Originally scheduled as a bantamweight bout, Aldo missed weight, and the fight was moved to featherweight, a decision that reflected just how difficult the cut had become. He shared that it wasn't just a physical aspect of cutting weight that broke him, it was an emotional and mental strain, saying, "There was one point this week that I felt I didn't have it anymore. I didn't want to cut anymore." Even before UFC 315, Aldo had briefly retired in 2022 after losing to Merab Dvalishvili, but his competitive spirit lured him back. He dabbled in boxing, returned to the UFC, and even picked up a solid win at UFC 301. Still, in the final moments of his career, the 37-year-old legend realized a hunger that once fueled him had faded. He said with conviction, "I just don't have it in my heart anymore. I can't do this anymore." Aldo's honesty and vulnerability struck a chord with fans and fighters alike. Unlike many who stayed too long, he chose to leave with dignity, recognizing that his time had come. His retirement wasn't driven by a single loss, but by a deeper understanding that continuing to fight would cost him more than it was worth, both physically and emotionally. It was a decision of a veteran who had already given everything he had to the sport. Jose Aldo leaves behind one of the most decorated legacies in MMA history, a career that spanned nearly 2 decades and helped define the UFC's featherweight division, from his explosive rise in the WEC to his dominance in the UFC. Aldo not only held titles, but also set standards for technical brilliance, resilience, and championship mentality. Aldo first became the WEC featherweight champion in 2009 and was later promoted to the UFC's inaugural featherweight champion when the WEC merged with the UFC in 2010. He defended the belt 7 times, racking up victories over elite contenders like Frankie Edgar, Chad Mendes, Ricardo Lamas, and Kenny Florian. His 1,848-day reign as champion remains the longest in featherweight history, and his 18-fight win streak, was among the most impressive the sport has ever seen. Despite the crushing defeat to Conor McGregor in 2015, a 13-second knockout that ended his historic run, Aldo rebounded with class. He beat Frankie Edgar again to win the interim belt and was promoted to undisputed champion when McGregor was stripped for inactivity. Though his second reign was short-lived, with Max Holloway defeating him twice, Aldo's ability to evolve and stay competitive in different divisions spoke volumes about his fighting IQ and heart. After his initial retirement in 2022, Aldo tested his skills in boxing and returned for a few more UFC appearances, even managing a win against Jonathan Martinez at UFC 301. But his final two bouts, including the war at UFC 315, show that while his skill remained sharp, the grind of preparation and recovery was catching up to him. In 2023, Aldo was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, a well-deserved honor that acknowledged not only his achievements but his influence on the sport. Fans, fighters, and even former rivals like Conor McGregor recognize his greatness. McGregor himself called him a real legend and said Aldo's Hall of Fame spot was earned. As Aldo bowed out in Montreal, battered but proud, he did so with a sense of peace. In his own words, "Know that I leave in peace, with a heart full of gratitude and my head held high." Aldo exits the sport not just as a former champion, but as a pioneer, a true king of Rio, a legend of the featherweight division, and a fighter whose name will forever be etched in the foundation of MMA. Aldo walks away with his head held high, a true warrior, a true legend. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more MMA breakdowns, reactions, and tributes. This is MMA Thread, where legends live forever.